Hello and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Let's just dive right in, folks. He's got opinions, he's not afraid to share them on Twitter. It's the Universal Champion Seth Rollins opening up Monday Night Raw. He gets a couple of words in before Becky Lynch interrupts and joins the celebration. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, folks, but they're dating now. They'd say a few more words about what happened at Stomping Grounds when Baron Corbin's music plays. Lacey Evans jumps Becky from behind. Corbin joins in. They has fight and the heels powder out. Corbin gets on the mic and tells Seth to go home and make a sandwich, and then they challenge Seth and Becky to a mixed tag team match at Extreme Rules. Becky says, well, if we beat you, you can't fight us anymore, no more opportunities at us. And then Corbin ups the ante by making winners take all, so both of the championships will be on the line at Extreme Rules. I just want to say, called it. The more time that's passed in Stomping Grounds, the more conflicted I am about this matchup we're going to see in the pay-per-view, because on the one hand, I am sick of seeing Baron Corbin in the main event picture. I am sick of seeing him and Rollins face off all the time, and I'm also to a lesser extent sick of Becky and Lacey fighting each other all the time as well. At the same time though, I am really curious to see what WWE will do trying to book an intergender / mixed tag storyline in a main event capacity. The closest we saw to that happening was last year's WrestleMania when it was Triple H and Stephanie versus Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey. That kind of weaved in and out of main event status, and this one I think has the potential to be more of a concern in that regard. So I want to see how they cover it, because that mixed tag team match at Mania last year, I think they covered the build and the payoff for it pretty well. So maybe I'm optimistic, at least we'll see something kind of similar to that with this one, but time will tell. First match of the night is an 8-man tag team elimination match in which entire teams are eliminated, not just one guy at a time, as the SmackDown and Raw tag team champions, Daniel Bryan, Rowan, and the Revival, take on the New Day and the Usos. Early on, Daniel accidentally dives on Dawson to the outside, and so Dawson gets some payback by costing Daniel the match, so he gets eliminated by the New Day. And so for 2 weeks in a row now, we've seen this kind of thing where there's miscommunication among the heels in a tag team scenario, and the heels, seeing what goes on and objectively realizing it's an accident, just immediately take it out on their partner and it ends up costing themselves the victory. But even though the Revival put themselves in a 2-on-4 situation, they're able to even things up fairly quickly, hitting Xavier Woods with the Shatter Machine, and so the New Day is eliminated. And then they say, we will reset and restart this match as a tag match after the break. That's how they're able to get around this whole no wrestling during commercial breaks edict. That was a big story last week, this new rule for the company that no more wrestling is to be had during commercial breaks. So you can definitely expect to see a lot more of those 2 out of 3 falls matches we saw last week, as well as more of these kind of breaks in elimination matches, or you'll see a lot of singles matches turning into tag team matches. I just get the feeling we're going to see a lot more of those happening. If you were sick of them before, get ready, because we're going to see a lot more of them as time goes on. It is a curious new rule. I don't think it's going to affect the TV viewing experience that much as opposed to the live experience, because if you watch those picture-in-picture things during SmackDown matches on commercial breaks, then that portion of the match is never really that interesting or exciting. They kind of know when the breaks are happening, so they kind of tone it down, just do a lot of working holds and stuff for the most part. So I don't think we're going to miss a whole lot of sizzle from matches if we don't get to see wrestling during commercial breaks. But I am curious to see how they're going to keep audience energy up during those breaks. They have to, really do more stuff with promos when they're off air, or do just more kind of pantomime and ballyhoo, or some kind of thing where, I think they did some audience quizzes on Monday night or something during the breaks, try and keep the fans interested. So they're definitely, it's on them now to keep the energy up after commercial breaks. And it's harder now since they don't always have wrestling to fall back on. But it turns out one way to get fans excited right out the gate from a commercial break is to have the Usos do a double dive on the Revival right as we come out of commercial. And so then ultimately the Usos win. It's basically a tale of 2 matches the way they break it up like this, with the eliminations, and then you get the 2 tag teams at the very end. Still some excitement wedged in there, but there you go. We get a clip of Braun Strowman practicing for his big tug-of-war battle with Bobby Lashley later in the night by pulling a dang old semi-truck just using his body and a rope. Then we go to Miz TV with special guests R-Truth and Carmella. 24/7 rules are conveniently suspended during the course of the interview. They show a replay of Truth crashing Drake Maverick's wedding over the weekend, where he won back the championship, which by the way was a phenomenal bit. And then Truth explains his woes of being champion. The fans are really into his promos, pretty entertaining stuff. Drake Maverick interrupts as his life has been ruined since what happened during his wedding. He says he wants a one-on-one match with Truth so he can win back the love of his life, the championship. Truth accepts. The match begins, the match ends. Truth pretty much beats Drake in seconds. Then right after that, League of Jobbers run out and they chase after R-Truth. Drake Maverick is despondent, can't even respond to an interview question. I do want want to see more of Drake's quest for the championship, like more so than R-Truth as champion and how he's kind of like running about trying to escape getting pinned. Like the side plot of Drake Maverick is what's really keeping me invested. It's handicap match time as Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre take on Roman Reigns. Bit of a roundabout explanation before the match where they explain there's no tags in the handicap match, and right from the get-go, Shane and Drew just beating the hell out of Roman. Claymores, stair shots, spears, you name it, they're doing it. Shane goes for the coast to coast, but before he can jump, we hear that familiar gong. The lights go out, they come back up. Undertaker uses teleportation, it's super effective. He crashes the party for Drew and Shane, and then he poses and he looks at Roman with the purple lighting and everything. We go to commercial, kind of a weird way to end on it, with this kind of like it just ends, and that's pretty much it. And then we find out later in the night, it's been announced that Roman and Taker will team up for the first time to take on Shane and Drew at Extreme Rules. Okay. Like I'm not really feeling good or bad about it. It basically seems to me that they're trying, maybe Taker wants to do a make good or a do-over after embarrassing himself in Saudi Arabia against Goldberg. Clearly this seems like an attempt to just drum up fan interest, like, you know, in case of emergency, summon the Undertaker and get him to do something with Roman Reigns. I wish they had done a little bit more storytelling with this, and instead of just announcing the tag team match right away on Monday night, I would have loved to wait a week for fans to speculate why he did that, and then the following week on Raw, he cuts a promo explaining why he did what he did, and then we get the match announced. Something to justify like the match being announced in the first place. Seems like it's one of those things where it's like everything in WWE is in a bubble, and like if we don't announce it, then it's not doesn't count as build. Like it's okay, we know the match is going to happen. If you wait a minute to announce the match, we still have it in our heads that Taker showed up, and we're gonna wonder about that as we go in the next week. It's okay, you know. Build is build, even if the match itself isn't announced. Up next, the tug of war as Bobby Lashley takes on Braun Strowman. Last time we saw these two on Raw, they had an arm wrestling contest to hype for their big Super Showdown match. So this is more of the same, really. The same basic concept where Braun is clearly going to win here. Lashley either loses or he throws the fight to beat up Strowman while he's off guard. He rakes the giant rope across Strowman's eyes, blinding him. He basically wins the fight. And so, yeah, very similar situation to what happened with the arm wrestling thing, just with a rope now instead of a arm wrestling table. Really riveting stuff. I can't wait until week 3 when they, you know, bring back the Army obstacle course Sami Zayn brought out last year. Backstage, AJ Styles is being interviewed. He's interrupted multiple times here, once by Kayla mid-sentence as he's talking, and then by the Good Brothers as they're mid-conga line with No Way Jose's Rosebuds. AJ gives him another pep talk about Japan. Then we go see Anderson and Gallows versus the Viking Raiders. Good Brothers start out strong, but we get a kick out from the Boot of Doom. Anderson eats the Viking experience, and that is how the Vikings win the day. And so AJ is just proper miffed. Backstage, Nikki Cross apologizes to Alexa Bliss for what happened at Stomping Grounds, how she essentially cost Alexa her match with Bayley. And they say, well, you know what, we need to formulate some kind of plan. Then we fade out for commercial. We come back. We're still in the women's locker room, and Nikki's still thinking. Natalya and Naomi come in and try and talk some sense into Nikki. Alexa comes back and talks trash with Naomi. And so these two, Alexa and Naomi, will be having a match later in the night. We're allegedly about to get a match between Heath Slater and Mojo Rawley, but before the match can actually happen, R-Truth and the League of Jobbers are running through the ringside area. In the chaos, Heath is actually able to beat R-Truth for the championship, and then right afterward, Truth wins it right back. I love Cole's call here where he goes, Truth is retained, whatever. It's just crazy here. And then afterward, Cedric Alexander beats Truth for the championship. EC3 beats Cedric for the belt, and then R-Truth beats EC3 for it right afterward after Carmella distracts EC3, and then he runs off. And so just more wacky 24/7 madness. And yeah, now that we've seen it, I do want to see EC3 with more of the 24/7 championship. I think, like, if anything, this angle has kind of created a couple of stars. You've got R-Truth, obviously, and like I mentioned, Drake Maverick. EC3 is kind of a close third place. I think you could kind of put Cedric Alexander in that 4th spot right now, or maybe Jinder, or you could put you put Heath Slater in more of a role with that. I think if anything, it's giving all these guys at least some kind of incidental airtime, just being in the pursuit scenes. But I think you can give a lot of guys a little bit of a chance to shine every week just by having them just win the belt and like being involved in the madness. We get a backstage interview with Ricochet where he's very humble and gracious about his U.S. title victory at Stomping Grounds. Then we go to Kofi Kingston in the ring. He's getting ready to be interviewed, and suddenly Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn interrupt for an impromptu version of the Kevin and Sami show. I do love how when Kevin reads through his cards, he has the questions spread out among multiple cards where he's like, why are you here? Sami accuses Kofi of not being able to win matches by himself. Kofi lists some recent evidence to the contrary, and like a proper troll, Sami moves the goalpost and says, oh, now you're being so egotistical, talk about how you beat all these people by yourself. Brilliant troll work by Sami there. So we get a match between he and Kofi. It's a pretty good match. Kofi wins the surprise roll-up. KO immediately afterwards challenges Sami to a match right then and there. We go to commercial break, and when we come back, the match actually starts. It's a much shorter match than what we saw with Kofi and Sami, at least. The match ends when Kofi hits the SOS onto Kevin on the ramp, like that partition between the elevated ramp and the floor. Kofi gets back into the ring. Kevin's counted out. So yes, Kofi is 2 for 2 against Kevin and Sami in one night. Them beating Xavier and Big E at Stomping Grounds means absolutely nothing. And just to put the icing on the cake, Kofi hits a dive onto both of them and celebrating. And so they're dead and buried. And then Samoa Joe jumps Kofi from behind. He walks away, comes back, locks the Coquina clutch onto Kofi right afterwards. And so now the match is set for Extreme Rules. Those two will be fighting, and I'm really excited about that particular matchup. Alexa Bliss takes on Naomi in singles action up next. Alexa does not take a bump, save for her DDT at the very end on Naomi after a distraction by Nikki Cross on the outside. So Alexa wins the match. She tries to lure Nikki to the dark side by holding up Naomi and getting Nikki to hit her. Nikki is muy conflicted. Out comes Natalya to make the save. We go to commercial, and then a tag team match, playa. Like I said earlier, if with this new rule of no wrestling during breaks, you can expect a lot more of these tag team match setups in between, on the edges of commercial breaks, basically. Alexa covers Natalya for the win after Nikki does all the heavy lifting, and a blind man could see the body language that Alexa Bliss is exhibiting here. She's putting on, like, trying to, like, play up to Nikki and really build her up. Main event time as AJ Styles takes on Ricochet in non-title action. Kind of a dream match is how they're building this thing up. Even though they have not wrestled before in WWE, they actually did wrestle a couple of times before in the Indies, as far back as at least 2014 for House of Glory. But yeah, it's the first time in this particular company for these two, so it's still kind of fresh in that way. As the match begins, Anderson and Gallows make their way to the ring to support AJ, but he gets out of the ring and like kind of chastises them like a parent to children. No, this match is not going to happen until you guys leave right now. And so they're leaving, and then the match is reset and restarted during commercial break. Such an interesting way they're trying to like justify these tosses to commercial break here. Anyway, this is a very good match. I'm not going to bother trying and call anything for you. This pretty much plays out exactly as you envision it in your head. AJ versus Ricochet. Styles does win with a phenomenal forearm. I'm not even mad that Ricochet lost one day after winning the US title, since this is kind of built as this kind of like dream match thing. It doesn't seem like it's part of a feud. It's more of an exhibition thing, and I'm sure they'll revisit this down the line, but as of right now, it's just kind of this really good face versus face showing of mutual respect. Nice sportsmanship at the end. So that's pretty much how Raw ends for the week, and we are going to reset and restart for SmackDown after the commercial break. And we're back. SmackDown begins with a recap of what happened on Raw with The Undertaker's big return. Shane shows up to cut a promo on the big screen. He's very upset. He says he's stared down the face of death before and has survived, so he has no problem turning Roman into a dead man too. Now, Shane, I know not everyone likes Roman Reigns, but putting him in a match with Goldberg in Saudi Arabia seems a little extreme for a punishment. After that, the New Day make their way to the ring. Kofi recaps what happened with him and Samoa Joe the previous night on Raw, but says he will come out on top when he faces Joe at Extreme Rules. Dilp Ziggler won the poll by a landslide, and he interrupts the proceedings here. Big E's eating a giant sleeve of saltines for some reason. That's going to be the new gimmick, from pancakes to saltines. And Dilp explains that he and Kofi will be having a 2 out of 3 falls match later tonight, and if Dilp wins, he'll be added to the match with Samoa Joe at Extreme Rules. So not much of this opening segment besides just some exposition and just explanation of what's going to happen in the main event. Why is Big E eating the saltines? Before the break, we see Daniel Bryan and Rowan walking down the hallway, and we see a wild appearance by Huskus, the pig puppet, that chocolate-eating pig puppet from Firefly Funhouse, lurking in the background as this is happening. You know, no one makes mention of it. It's just one of those little Easter egg things. I forgot to mention this for Raw. We saw Mercy and Abby the Witch make similar appearances in backstage bits as well, kind of in the background. We see one later on with Rambling Rabbit. So no Firefly Funhouse episode per se, but we do see the puppets kind of lurking about in the background, kind of like it's kind of ominous in a way. I was like, shit, Bray Wyatt, he could be coming around sooner than you think. Backstage, Elias is guarding Shane McMahon's office door when The Miz shows up, and he tells Elias to tell Shane he wants one more match with Shane. And so Miz leaves. Shane shows up out of the office and says, I'll take on Shane tonight if he can beat Elias in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Way to pound this stipulation into the fucking ground in the last 2 weeks. It's just like, 2 out of 3 falls matches, at least in WWE, have been a very rare kind of occurrence. So for them to be busting them out so quickly, it's like, okay, I'm not against the idea of more 2 out of 3 falls matches. It is very lucha libre of them, but it's so transparent as to why they've implemented this all of a sudden. It's like, it's not even gradual. It's just ramped up, boom, 2 out of 3 falls matches every week now. Get used to it. It's definitely not out of some form of altruism. Next match is Daniel Bryan and Rowan taking on Big E and Xavier Woods in non-title action. It's a pretty good match. The New Day win after they hit Daniel with the up, up, down, down, which great way to make your champions look strong by having them lose all the fucking time. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn jump the New Day after the match because, hey, at least they can beat those 2 guys in a match. Heavy Machinery comes in to save the day and even the odds. We go to commercial and, you guessed it, 8-man tag team match. Playa, like, can we just let a segment end on its own and just be happy with it? Anyway, Heavy Machinery win for their team. Otis hits the Caterpillar on Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens sees it, just walks away in disgust. They hit the Compactor on Sami and that's how the match ends. In the first of 2 out of 3 falls matches on the night, The Miz takes on Elias, and to reiterate, if The Miz wins here, he will be able to fight Shane McMahon later on. Elias wins the first fall fairly quickly after Shane interferes. Second fall takes a bit longer. Miz hits a skull-crushing finale. Shane gets in there and starts beating up The Miz, so Miz is disqualified, technically wins that second fall. But before the third fall can begin, Shane and Elias just beat the hell out of Miz. The bell finally rings. Elbow drop. Elias wins the third fall, and there you go. They put more of a beating on Miz. He's just getting his dick kicked in week after week by Shane. Buy his t-shirts. Backstage, we get a rare Finn Balor sighting. Good to see the Intercontinental Champion on TV for a change. He's about to talk about who he wants his next opponent to be when suddenly Shinsuke Nakamura walks in. Haven't seen him in an even longer time than Finn Balor. He just kind of gestures at the belt for a while, and that's pretty much it. So we've got this match set, and I'm really excited on paper for Shinsuke and Finn for the Intercontinental Championship. It's just great to see Shinsuke back on television after so long. Up next, Nikki Cross takes on Bayley in non-title action, and if Nikki wins here, Alexa Bliss will get a rematch with Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Extreme Rules. It's a good match here. Nikki stuns Bayley after countering a roll-up attempt with a pinfall of her own to win the match. So Bayley is going to be fighting Alexa Bliss once again. I did enjoy the post-match celebration Nikki had, like being happy on behalf of her friend Alexa, her getting into it with the announcers, and I love how Corey Graves is getting into it too. Backstage, Carmel's looking around for R-Truth. She runs into Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, and there's that rambling rabbit sighting in the background, by the way. And so they talk some trash to each other. Fire and Desire walk off. Truth emerges from his hiding place, and as they're talking, Drake Maverick shows up. I love he's got his hands up. I don't have a referee, as if it's a gun. But he basically says, you know, my life's been ruined. I just need this championship. Pleads his case to R-Truth, and Truth says, we know what, Hornswoggle, if it means that much to you, let's just have the match right now. And then as he's getting the referee, he's like, psych, and he runs off as the League of Jobbers chase after him. Oh, that wacky Truth. Sonya Deville takes on Ember Moon in a match that all began over a Nintendo Switch and a box of donuts. For a match that had about 2 weeks worth of build, you might call it, the thing only lasts about 30 seconds long as Mandy Rose distraction allows Sonya to win, beat Ember Moon after shoving her into the turnbuckle post, and that's pretty much it. Like, wow, nice seeing you, Ember Moon. Thanks for coming. We got some interesting body language then between Mandy and Sonya. Aleister Black is still peeved that no one's knocked on the door to challenge him to a fight, and just as he says that, the lights go out for a second, they come back up, we hear the door knock, and we see this kind of mischievous look in Aleister's eyes. Will we see that fight? Not yet. Main event time, 2 out of 3 falls match as Kofi Kingston takes on Dilp Ziggler. And remember, if Dilp wins this matchup, he's out of the championship match at Extreme Rules. Kofi wins the first fall with a surprise roll-up. Dilp jumps him after the fall. We go to commercial break, come back out of it, and Dilp immediately wins the second fall right as it begins. And so we're tied up at 1 apiece. Kofi fights very valiantly here in the matchup, kicking out of a lot of big moves. Ultimately hits the Trouble in Paradise to win the third and deciding fall and keep his match a one-on-one experience. For now, at least. Maybe things will change. I don't know. It was a really solid main event, and wait a minute. What's that? Oh, never mind. It was nothing. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. This week, I'm giving the point to Raw barely. I mean, neither show really knocked out of the park for me. I think, though, that SmackDown is really suffering under this wildcard rule, which, by the way, they didn't even mention by name this week. I don't think I heard one utterance of that phrase at all between Raw or SmackDown this week. The gimmick is obviously still in place of transferring talent from show to show with no rhyme or reason. There's just no name for it anymore. But, you know, basically what we're seeing with this is this kind of, we're all seeing all these big storylines happening on Raw. carrying over to SmackDown. But all these things we're seeing on Raw, a lot of it technically belongs to SmackDown guys. And so it's all kind of a mess. But right now, this mess is Raw's gain, as the more interesting things are definitely happening on Raw now, whether or not it's a Raw or SmackDown angle. And right now, with all the intermingling, it doesn't really make a difference anymore. And so right now, Raw on the whole is a more entertaining show, in my opinion, than SmackDown. I don't know if this whole business of the transition for commercials is going to get any smoother, but I'm just, as a viewer, I'm definitely pulling for it to do so. Let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the upper right hand corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.